Deborah Frances-White, aka the guilty feminist, went on Triggernometry. An interesting detail, she asked to be on there, she wasn't invited on, and the comments are mental. Like, they don't care about anything she's saying, no good faith debate. And this is the situation we're in now, where we live in two different realities. It's impossible to have a good faith debate with these types of people. So let's get into the interview and break it down, because she's written a book about having a good faith discussion, but I think she's been quite naive here. So let's get straight into it.
Set aside those two. I certainly wouldn't say those two men as far right, but
You wouldn't say Elon Musk or Donald Trump were far right?
definitely not.
They're literally cancelling everything. Anything. They're destroying lives
Okay,
right now.
perhaps we have a different definition of what far right is. What would you say? What's the definition of far
Well,
right in your head?
What about them isn't far rightist? I would ask you.
But
what
in order to
about
answer your
what they're
question-
doing isn't far right?
Yeah, I understand your question. In order to answer your question, we both have to agree on a definition of far
They've
right.
literally said
No,
they've
but-
taken.
Deborah, just pause for a moment. What is your definition of far right?
See, this is basic stuff. And there's so much that Trump and Musk, Donald Trump literally has called for violence, called for an insurrection. He's illegally deporting people, Mahmoud Khalid, for example. He's trying to suppress press freedoms. Lawyers, he's going after lawyers now, law firms. He perpetrates or perpetuates the big lie about the election being stolen. He lies constantly. Hitler famously said, not small lies, big lies. He lies about criminals, which are coming over the border, which are less likely to commit crime than the native citizens. There's so much there. And Elon Musk, let's not start with Elon Musk. Sieg Heil, reinstating neo-Nazis, Nick Fuentes, Andrew Anglin, supporter of Tommy Robinson. There's so much here. And she can't even define the far right. Like, also, I don't blame her, because Kisin isn't a good faith actor here. He doesn't care. Like, but let's continue.
It's far further than fiscal conservatism.
Okay.
It is social conservatism that says there is one proper way to live, and that way is a heteronormative family, 2.4 children. Women should be having babies. This is all Heritage Foundation values. This is all Project 2025 staff, and this is well. And also, if you don't agree with this, here's an example of something far right that Trump and Musk are doing. If you don't agree with this, if you go to if universities allow illegal protests, by which they mean protests, the students will be instantly dismissed. This is what the American government are saying. If you're at Harvard, you want to protest, that government decide as a legal protest. The students will be instantly dismissed. If they're foreign students, they'll be sent home. They may be arrested and imprisoned, no matter where they're from. And if the university is allowed it, all federal funding will be pulled from that university. Does that not seem to you to be verging into fascism?
No, I don't think it's verging into fascism.
Don't ask that question, because he's going to obviously say no. You just answer the question, what the definition of far right is, and then give the example. There's so much on Trump. It's so obvious. It's so obvious with Trump. And he's opportunist. He's not necessarily ideological fascist, but there's a long list of what Trump has done.
But so
What would cause your alarms to go off then?
The right to protest is incredibly important.
And if without it, what do we have? What kind of government do we have?
Hold on a second. I'm answering your question. The right to protest is incredibly important. I think the interesting thing about those particular cases that you're referring to is whether there is celebration, glorification, or promotion of terrorism, which is illegal both in this country and in the US. And I think
no, it's not actually. The first, you may not like it, but under the First Amendment, people can say that. I don't think they should. I don't think they should celebrate Hamas. But That's why they don't have hate crimes law. And he celebrates that like, oh, hate crime laws, non-crime hate laws. Like, which way? You can't have it both ways, Kisin. So he's just lying here. Like, he has to just lie and say, oh no, like, again, how can you have, because she's here, and I think she's a little bit naive, because she's come on here in good faith to say, let's have a conversation. But he knows he's lying. So how do you deal with that? And also when you live in a different reality, like I'm in this reality now, and if I wanna talk to someone like Kisin or someone on the grifting right, and they live in a different reality, how can you have that conversation? How it's literally impossible. And I think you have to try. I think you have to talk about these things, and you have to engage on some level. On some level. But is this reality now? Like, we can't, and this is obviously manufactured. I mean, the culture war isn't really a culture war. Like, they didn't frame it that way. But the culture war is just them spreading misinformation. It's not a culture war. It's like climate change, feminist rights, trans rights. Like, these are good things objectively. Like, if you fight against women's equality, I'm sorry, you've lost the argument here. The consensus is in women have the same rights as men. Same with climate change. It's not even an argument. The details are maybe being ironed out, but we've known about it since the 1930s. It's impossible. And all I can do as a small YouTuber who's irrelevant, who has no voice, is call out the lies, because that's what it is. It's not a culture war. They're just spreading misinformation. And when someone spreads misinformation, you've got to call it out. Because there's a battle of realities here. It is an information war. And yeah, there's plenty of other things we should be talking about. But I think we should spend some time just exposing how, when some good faith actors want to have a conversation, they don't want it. Kisin doesn't want to have this conversation. He didn't invite her on. She invited herself.
That's probably where the dividing line is on that issue. I'm a little bit confused.
Please do not think for 1 second this isn't going to hit queer people, LGBTQ plus people. It is hitting them right now. There are states where they are arguing to take back the right to equal marriage, and there are states which are putting forward these sort of I can't remember what they call them now, but sort of some kind of special trust marriages where we give you a tax break, but the marriage is one from which a woman cannot divorce a man, basically, without these really old-fashioned, like we're literally talking about the rights that women fought for, that unless you can prove that your partner's been faithful or you can prove that they've been significantly abusive, you cannot divorce them.
Yes.
I mean, we are heading into Gilead. We really are.
That's not, none of those are things that anybody here supports, but I'm just coming back to this idea of Trump and Musk being far right. You initially talked about the Heritage Foundation, traditional marriage, all of that stuff. And then
she was literally talking about it then, but you have to ignore it. None of us support that. It's like, it's so dishonest. It's like,
we talked about fascism. So is your definition, are you saying Trump and Musk are fascists?
I'm saying that the government is making moves which makes anybody who is frightened of fascism, which should be all of us, very scared. Like, I feel like saying...
all you got to say is like, well, in 1928, in 1933, do you think people were aware of what's going to happen? Like, to him, his idea of fascism is this like, oh, it's this zero-sum game, Holocaust. No, fascism is all over the world. Modi, Erdogan, Viktor Orban, Putin. It's not an extraordinary thing. Fascist tendencies are kind of embedded in our nature. It's a very reactionary thing where we go nativist, and it's specific to capitalism, but the idea that us versus them, there's an enemy, and the majority, be it the white majority, the German majority, are fighting for their survival. And it's not based in reality. It's a feeling-based ideology. It's incoherent. And he's just being dishonest. And it's like, he knows he knows exactly what he's doing. He's just not being good faith. And she is. And that's the world we live in now. That's the discourse.
If it's an illegal protest, and what kind of protest does Trump like? You know Trump. What does he like?
I don't know Trump.
Well, you've seen him in power before. If the students were all out protesting in a state where they were taking away equal marriage, and there were loads of gay
I'm pretty
students.
sure Trump is pro-equal marriage, isn't he? And Elon, certainly, I would imagine.
They're all pro, well, there's social capital in it, but he hasn't been saying anything positive about gay people lately, has he?
Don't say stuff like that. Like, go with evidence of what they actually are saying, not what they're not saying. See, this is frustrating because this is an easy layup for those guys. Like, just give the examples of Trump calling for violence, suppressing press freedom, going after lawyers, against due process. He literally said, law isn't about trials. In his 100-day interview with, I think, ABC, he said, law is not about trials. This is what we're dealing with here. Trump has no idea. He thinks the tattoo of the Venezuelan gang, I can't remember the name, was real. It was photoshopped. It's been verified it's photoshopped. Like, they don't live in reality. It's insane.
Has he said anything negative about gay people?
I'm pretty sure.
Which way is the wind blowing, be honest, in America about gay rights?
Oh, yeah.
Why are you talking about gay people? Talk about trans people. Talk about trans rights. And what Elon Musk says about trans rights and his own daughter. I mean,
Yeah, but
And then who's in charge?
Yeah, but this is the interesting thing because it's the worrying thing about the right now. Trump seems like a moderate compared to some of the people who are outside of the halls of power.
Well, then in that case, someone else.
lean into that. What does he mean by that? Who are you talking about specifically? What have they done? What do they represent?
Is pulling the strings, and he's allowing them to be pulled because it is fast going towards.
I don't like, neither does Francis, a lot of the things that are happening in America in particular on the right. You don't need to convince anyone here of that. I'm just...
What, though? What specifically? See, she should have jumped on that. She should have been like, okay, what don't you like? Let's talk about what you don't like on the right and what you do like. He might give one example, but he's not going to be honest about actually what Trump represents and what Elon Musk represent.
I'm kind of a bit of a stickler for definitions because I think it's important. And one of the things, this is...
No, you're not. People know what the far right means. They know what the far right is. Like, he can't have the conversation. He's not having a good faith conversation. Let's just talk about what Trump has done and what he is doing. That's what they should be talking about. But he's like, oh, I'm sick for definitions. We know what far right means.
This is one of the big things that's happened that really always worried me with wokeness. And I think we're now seeing, unfortunately, the tragic results of that, which is when people throw around labels like fascist and Nazi and bigot and all, whatever, irresponsibly, as they did, and they continue to do.
How is it irresponsible when you're talking about Trump and Musk? It's not irresponsible at all. Trump constantly is abusive towards people. He's an abusive guy interpersonally. People know him. He is an abusive person. And that carries out into his politics. He doesn't care about anybody but Trump. He doesn't care about the American population. He lies constantly. And like, oh, we call him a bigot. What about freedom of speech? See, that's the thing. Like, irresponsible. No. It's very clear that Donald Trump represents a authoritarian paradigm. And if you were to break it down, make a list with him and go through and like, right, this is what he's done. The enemy within, he's called for police to shoot on BLM protesters. He said literally, shoot them in, can't you just shoot them in the legs? Insane. Like, what other, he's praised. And also, their government is built on Viktor Orban's far-right fascism in Hungary since 2010. They've literally copied it. Like, but he's lying. So, because that's what fascists do. And you can't have a good faith debate with them. You just, from a distance, you've got to say, look, he's obviously lying. He doesn't care.
What then happens is there are now actual Nazis. Actual.
Who though? Do you mean there's always been Nazis? They didn't go away in 1945, Kisin. There are actual. Yes, Elon Musk. I don't think Trump is. I think he's an opportunist who slipped into fascist talking points. He used to be a Democrat, but that doesn't mean he, his actions don't contradict his beliefs, his internal beliefs. Trump thinks he's a good guy. Doesn't mean he is.
Nazis, not people who say, trans woman isn't a woman or whatever, but people who actually are doing Holocaust denial, people who are actually saying, well, Hitler was a good guy, all of this stuff. And we can't call them a Nazi anymore and be credibly believed because the...
What? Yes, we can. See, this is the thing. Yes, we can. We can call the Nazi a Nazi, and we can call someone who has Nazi talking points also Nazis. There is a spectrum of Nazis here. You've got people who use their talking points, mentioning no names, and then you've got people who are ideologically Nazi, like your Nick Fuentes, your Andrew Anglins, you know, pretty far out people.
The left spend years calling people a Nazi for, thinking pronouns are funny or whatever. Do you see what I mean?
I think you can, and
it has no effect on the right anymore. It has no effect.
Yes, it does. If you wouldn't be saying that, it really does. That's the thing. It does. If it wasn't, you wouldn't even have to say it. If it had no effect, you'd just be like, you wouldn't even talk about it, would you? Like when something doesn't affect you, it's like, yeah, should we move on into something else? It does, because he knows he's lying. He knows what Elon Musk has been signal boosting and what he's been suppressing. He's actually been suppressing not just left-wing people, but right-wing people that disagree with him. He doesn't care about freedom of speech. They virtue signal that. They don't care about freedom of speech.
I don't
the power
really
of those
think
words
you
got taken away.
I don't really think you can blame some young people who, like, the internet is a vicious place.
It wasn't
and the
young
internet's...
people. David Lammy called the ERG. He went on national television in Britain with Andrew Marr and said that the ERG, basically a group of conservatives who are pro-Brexit, are worse than Nazis. It wasn't young people. It was the entire left. It was the entire left.
Okay, so one example of David Lammy, who I don't particularly like, saying a thing, is the whole left. Okay. If he's the whole left, we're doomed.
We do know that Boris Johnson is with Steve Bannon, who is a white supremacist.
Yeah,
we do know that there are links between Viktor Orban, Salvini and others. I'm not backing off on this. Never will I back off on this on behalf of my constituents. And the BBC should not allow this extreme hard right fascism to flourish.
He's right, actually right.
And often the
these are elected
side of
Conservative MPs.
I don't care how elected they were. So was the far right in Germany. They're often elected, often giving a cover for the thugs on the ground.
Look, I don't know that...
He's actually right there. It's true. You think fascists come in with their tanks and military today? No, fascists are democratically elected, unfortunately. Like, fascism has changed. They've got this cartoon view of fascism, like, oh, fascism. No, fascism and the far right have been assimilated. Like your far right today are your Paul Thorpes, your kind of people who cosplay as like, oh, they're just patriots. Fascism has changed. It's insane that like this is the whole left. One person, but then what he says is actually right. Steve Bannon is a far right national white supremacist. He is. Like Steve Bannon had relationships and helped the Brexit campaign and Nigel Farage. Like he doesn't like the facts because the facts hurt his feelings.
That it was the entire left. I don't remember calling anyone a Nazi, and I would say myself on the left. I think we've all got a problem that we go on the internet and whatever the worst things that we see, even though there's fewer of them than the best things, and there's fewer of them. Most people aren't even on social media in that capacity. They're just sharing their holiday snaps and their pictures of their grandchildren. And we decide that's who society is and that's who the left is.
That's true. But David Lammy and prominent left-wing
So you're just contradicting what you've just said. So you think it's more nuanced than that, but you're saying, oh, it's all the left saying this. Like, see, this is why it's impossible to have it just is an impossible situation now where we are in two different realities. And that analogy of like, if someone's in another reality that I'm not aware of, or they're not aware of, like, it's impossible. I think it is just, because I would talk to Kisin, although I don't think he's for good faith. It's never going to happen, and I'd rather talk to someone who's good faith who would listen to me and back and forth and talk about the evidence. And, I think, even Joe Rogan, I think is more that, although he will just adapt to whoever he's talking to. He is a bit slimy. And also he's criticizing Trump recently, but he has no values. It's where the money is. And that's the thing, like, that's the sad thing now. Kisin is doing well financially. He's audience captured. He can't really have a good faith discussion because already, look at the comments on this video. They're just ridiculing her. They're not actually engaging in what she's saying. And when we can't engage with each other seriously in a good faith, like, where does it go? Well, like, if we can't talk about evidence and what people have done and reality, and where are we? It's an incredibly depressing situation. And on that note, hit the like button, and I guess I'll see you next time.